So now that we have all of our shortcodes completed, it's time to actually make our own URLs. Now, when I'm saying URLs, I of course don't mean the URLs that we save that we are shortening. I mean more specifically the URLs that are up here. So like this is an actual URL, right? And if I change it to a different page, the URL changes accordingly. Now, of course, this is fairly intuitive. You probably already knew that. But what we need to do now is actually have those short URLs in combination with our domain name or whatever we're working with here to actually do the redirect to whatever that URL is or whatever it's saved in the database. So what we need to do is actually create something called views. So if you jump into our app shortener, you'll see that there's views.py. There's already a place for views. So there's a couple ways on how we can actually go about creating our views. And the first way we're going to do it is called a function-based view. That's going to do just a very, very straightforward and easy way to do this. And I'll just call it cur_redirect_view. And the default parameters it takes in is just request, but we can also put in args and keyword args just to be safe. And this is going to return something. So I am going to just return an HTTP response. We'll see what that is in a second, but we'll do join from Django.http import HTTP response. And I'll just return a response saying hello. That's all I'll do for now. So along the same lines, I am also going to do this exact same idea with a class-based view right next to it so you guys can see that in action as well. So we're going to import a class-based view or just a generic class-based view, and that's from Django.views import view. And we're going to define this one as class cur redirect view as well. Oops, not like that, but just cur, not URL, but just cur redirect view. And this takes in that view class. And to emulate the same function-based view, we just write define get self request, and then again args and keyword args. And we're going to return that same HTTP response of hello again. And now we have two different kinds of views. I'll explain what's going on with these views after we actually can go to them in just a second. So now that we have these, I have to create URLs to send them here. So these class or function, either one of these things handles a URL. So it handles when somebody goes to a URL, Django will send them to these functions. We'll see that in just a second. So inside of cur, we're going to go to urls.py, open this up, and we're going to import our view functions here. So from shortener.views import, and we're going to import both of them, which is the cur redirect view, and then the other one, which is also the cur redirect view. Let's actually call it cur CBV or CB view, as in class-based view, and this is a function-based view, FBV and CBV. Okay, so cur CB view, just so we're not too confused here. We've got our function-based view and our class-based view. Now, this importing part is actually required now for Django 1.10. So if you see older versions of Django, something you will probably see, well, I'll show you what you'll see, but you're going to see something different, basically. Now what we want to do is create a couple URLs that are going to go to these views. So I'm just going to make a very simple URL by doing r and single parentheses, or excuse me, single quote, caret, and then we'll say view-1, close that quote, and then we'll put our cur redirect view, and then we'll put a comma at the end, because notice it is in a list, so we need to make sure that we have the comma at the end. And I'm actually going to copy this, paste it in here, and the class-based view is really just a little different. We'll just do as view, and that's how you actually write out the class-based view to be rendered as a view. And we'll call that view 2. And at the very end, I'm actually going to put a little $ here. This has to do with something called Python regular expressions, which is definitely something we cover on joincfe.com/projects. and there's actually a entire course dedicated to regular expressions. We also have on our GitHub guide, so if you go to joincfe.com/guides, you can actually see a common regular URL expressions that we've created. Now, this is the old pattern. This is actually going to be updated by the time you see this video, but what we see in the video is the old pattern on how you can actually write URLs. But anyways, let's actually stick to what we're doing here and talk about what's actually happening here. And so you might recognize the admin URL, and that admin URL has everything to do with this right here. So if I changed admin URL to new-admin, which you may consider doing, so it's a little bit harder for Django developers to find out where your admin is. If I refresh in here, we're going to get, it looks like we have a little bit of an error, and it's probably because I didn't save views. So let's maybe save those, and that error goes away. Okay, good. We refresh in here, and now if I go to new-admin, it now takes me to where I went. Right, so that's how the URLs are mapped. We are just mapping these URLs right here. And what's happening with the request, so when I go to a URL that's called a request, the Django project like parses out what's going on in this URL, and then it sends it here. And if one of these patterns matches, right? If one of these matches, it goes then to the corresponding either URL section, which is what the admin does, or corresponding view. The admin goes to a corresponding URL section, which has its own patterns just like this that also has its own views. So at the end of the day, it's going to be routed to some sort of view, so that view is handling it. So if we look back into our two views, all we have here is hello and hello again. If we look at what the URLs are, one is view-1, the other one is view-2. So it's really easy. We can go view-1 and press enter, and it says hello. And if we go to view-2, we see hello again. So the other way to find out what our URLs are, if we do a random URL that doesn't match any patterns, we see all the patterns that Django tried, right? So I can also see this with new admin. I can write something like that, and it'll show me all other patterns that are in there. The reason I knew to do this is because of that $sign. So if we went back to that missed URL, notice that this $'s here, that signifies the end of the pattern or end of the matching expression. So that's how I knew that. Of course, again, those will be very clear if you go check out the Python regular expression class or the Python regex class. That will clear that stuff up. But we now have these views, which is really nice because we can do stuff with these views. Now, in other Django projects, not this one, but in other ones, the response that you would give is probably some sort of template. You'd probably have some sort of data, just like you do with the admin. But that's not what we're going to do. Instead, we're going to be using our embed views like this to grab that URL that is related to whatever that embed code is or that short code is, and then we're going to just redirect to that code. And I'm just going to show you how to do it with two different function-based views. Okay, so if you have any questions on what we've done so far, let us know. This is basic URL stuff. You're actually going to get a lot more of how to do these URLs and how to actually create a normal website, not a URL shortening service, but a normal website. You'll get to know this a little bit more going further. Like we will have a view that actually shows you how like forms work and also how like to render just a template so we can have a nicely designed site. But we're not going to do that yet. Instead, we're going to work on these redirect view stuff right off the bat because that's what's most important for our URL shortener. So if you have any questions on what we did, let us know. Otherwise, let's keep going.